So
Yeah.
so now you are in your diploma. You were
Yeah.
focused even more additional engineering subjects. What was the major difference you found between the certificate and diploma?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I'm not even sure that that I can have a definitive answer to it. I guess maybe we did a little bit a more extensive project probably was one thing. I ended up doing something called computer controlled cyclic voltmetric analyzer.
Wow.
No idea. No, can't even remember what it did now, but it sounded really good.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much a year-long project. So that was one part of it. And then we went into, I guess, into a little bit more depth, I think, on each of the subjects than we would have done for the certificate. So, but really, it was, a little bit more of the same, with a bit more emphasis on a more extensive project and a little bit more depth, I think, from what I can recollect. So,
And you were
but it probably, yeah. Go on, sorry.
Yeah, I was no, sorry.
Yeah, no.
You go ahead.
Yeah, no. I think that was about it. That's what I wanted to say on that. Yeah.
So now you are in it, doing maybe last stages of your diploma, and you were thinking, okay, I need to get a job now.
Yes.
Because maybe your family also thinking that, okay, you're not coming back to farming. Probably your siblings busy with farming, and now you are waiting for the job. What was the things?
Yeah, that's also interesting. Yeah, because I guess maybe I never thought too much about. So yeah, my at home, I guess, on the farm, typically what happens in Ireland is it can often be the youngest person that gets the farm, because you get rid of everybody else, and then the last person standing gets to keep the farm. So one of my younger brothers, my second youngest brother, was the one that was most interested in the farm. So he was helping my dad at the time. I would help a little bit when I went home at weekends. I was living in Galway during the term, and I guess there was probably an expectation that I would get a job afterwards and wouldn't come back home again. But there wasn't. I don't ever remember any pressure per se. I don't remember my parents saying, "Have you got a job? Have you got a job?" I wasn't costing them too much, other than a little bit of money for beer. I wasn't costing them a whole lot more, and as it turned out, I ended up, I was looking at the notice board in college one day, and I saw a couple of different companies had advertised looking for college graduates, and I applied for the two jobs that I saw on the board, and one of them was Analog Devices, and one of them was some other random company. So I think the random company, I don't think responded to me, and within about a week, I got a call from Analog Devices asking me to do an interview in the college, that they were coming into the college to do interviews. So at the time, I didn't even realize where they were. I kind of assumed they were in Galway because they were advertised in Galway. But that's how much I knew.
Did you know what kind of company that was?
I knew. I hadn't heard about it, and I see all these, I hear about guys talking about how they've always wanted to work for Intel, or they've always wanted to work for Analog Devices, or they've always wanted. I never even heard of these companies. I just saw them advertising, and again I just randomly put my name down for the two companies that were on the board, and one of them came in. Interviewed me, and then asked me. A few weeks later, I got another call to come down and do an interview, a more detailed interview down in Limerick. So then it was only then I realised, they're not in Galway. I'm going to have to find my way to Limerick now. So
what year this was?
This was in 1987. Yeah,
Oh,
so
I see.
1987.
Okay. Yeah.
So my dad drove me to Limerick, and I had an uncle who lived in Limerick, but I hadn't really been in Limerick, maybe once for a basketball match or something in the college. And we went down and we met my uncle, and he took us to where Analog Devices were, and I did the interview, and I got it. So I now had a job.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And sorry, Rashid. Yeah, go on.
Sorry, I think my phone and iPads are connected. So whenever
Okay.
there is a call on a phone, it gets on the iPad. So sorry for that.
No worry.
Okay.
No worries.
So you were now you got a job. What was there? Did you realize was there a big competition at that time? You had to go through the interview process pretty thoroughly, or it was just okay. You went to Limerick and was like an hour interview, and then you got hired.
Yeah, it's probably somewhere in between. I don't remember being overly concerned about the interview, or I don't remember being particularly, it wasn't the case that I didn't have very high expectations from it, maybe because at the time in Ireland it was pretty difficult to get employment, and a lot of my friends were immigrating at the time. A lot of my friends had gone to the UK to work and gone to other parts of the world. And I just kind of assumed actually that I may end up having to do that. And I wasn't too concerned if I had to do that, because one of the friends that I had the previous summer I had gone to the UK to just work casually, worked as a security guard over there in London, and I really loved London. So I thought, yeah, I'll finish college. If I don't get a job in Ireland, then that's fine. I'll go to London, and that could be more fun anyway. So I did the interview in Analog Devices without too much expectation, and wasn't really expecting to be hired, to be honest. But yeah, the interview obviously went okay, and and I got offered a job. But it wasn't that I was overjoyed, or I was just, oh wow,
Oh, really?
That's good. I have a job. Let's see
Oh,
how
really?
this goes. So yeah. So
So,
I didn't
but I
have a
mean,
high expectation.
thinking of that, yeah, sorry, thinking of that, okay, your friends going outside the country for a job and you got a job locally.
Yeah.
But and it was not that kind of joyful.
Yeah, and maybe it was a little bit of faraway fields or green, I kind of, I think maybe I envied my friends going to London or going to Australia or going to America, and I was going to Limerick, where, Limerick probably didn't have a great name at the time as a place to go. It wasn't like going to Galway, or it wasn't like going to Dublin maybe. So I was a little bit, I was kind of happy to get a job, but not jumping for joy. So
Okay.
yeah,
So,
but
what was your role?
I joined as a technician, as a calibration technician. So it was it was basically with responsibility for calibrating all of the equipment that was used throughout the factory, basically. Multimeters that were used in the lab, voltage sources that were used in the lab, equipment used inside in the wafer fab, so anything related to voltage or resistance or temperature, or all of those pieces of equipment, the testers that were used to kind of apply voltages to the ICs, etc. All of those had to be calibrated. So we had a calibration department there with 3 or 4 people in it. We had equipment there was standardized high quality equipment that in turn got calibrated by an external standards body, and then we used that equipment then to keep all of the equipment in Analog Devices within spec, basically. So that was my role.
How was the team there?
it,
How many people were there? How was it was your first job. How was your
yeah
experience?
it was great. I have to say, from so even though, as I say, I was I was a little bit apprehensive, more so than delighted, like I said earlier, about what the job might be. But within hours, even, or definitely within days of being there, I totally I really enjoyed it. I found it a great place to go, a great place to work. Great people, really fun people, really helpful people, and it was just I settled in straight away. I stayed, moved into a house with some other guys that had just started, and they became kind of lifelong friends pretty much. I still go for beers with them now and again, and it was a wonderful experience. I loved it from the get-go. So any apprehension I had, or any jealousy I had about my friends going abroad, immediately dissipated, and any apprehension about living in Limerick was a great place, great fun, and met loads and loads of friends, and loads of parties, and picked up lots of sports that I had never played before, and it was great.
Yeah. I mean, you ended up like then 20 years with Analog Devices. So how did it go within Analog Devices? You started in one group in one area, then you moved to another one. How it was interesting for you? Like how you made it interesting for yourself? How did it go?
No, it was it was very So I guess a little bit like my career up to that point. It was all very much opportunistic rather than planned. So while I was working as a calibration technician, calibrating some equipment inside in the fab, this particular piece of equipment was related to testing the wafers when they come off the line, I guess, or even more so, it was actually testing test structures on those wafers. So MOSFET devices, resistors, capacitors, testing the individual attributes of those devices. So I was calibrating that machine one day, and I met one of the guys who was responsible for device modeling in Analog Devices, and he was having some problems with this particular machine, and I helped him to resolve some issues. And then he kind of casually mentioned to me that, by the way, they're looking to hire some device modeling people in his team, and would I be interested? So I was there less than 2 years at that stage, maybe 18 months only, and I kind of said, it sounds interesting, but I don't really want to piss off my current boss by just moving. So I went to the HR person at the time and said, I've just been kind of approached, and they said, okay, well, firstly, don't tell anybody that you've just been approached, because that's not a very good thing to do. And secondly, I'd absolutely advise you to go for it. So
he was saying that don't tell that you were approached. That was not the right thing to do.
Correct. Yeah. So don't let don't openly say you were approached, but if there's a job going and it's advertised, why wouldn't you go for it? So I basically went for the job then, because I felt, well, if the guy who's hiring has asked me to go for it, then there's a good chance I might get it. I got it. There were a couple of applicants, and and I was successful, and yeah, I spent the next 5 years or so, I think, in that role, and that was very interesting. And it was at that point that I decided, I was still I was doing an engineering role now rather than a technician role, but I was still a technician from a qualification perspective, even though I was now an in-house engineer. But I decided then to take advantage of a part-time degree course that Analog would sponsor. And I did my part-time degree course while I was in that group. So that was kind of 3 years part-time out in University of Limerick to become a fully fledged qualified engineer.
Okay.
Rather than an in-house engineer. So
how long it took?
Now,
part-time?
3 years part-time. So,
okay.
So I now had 3 years full-time and 3 years part-time to get to be an engineer, rather than normally that would just take 4 years full-time. So it took a little bit longer. But my job didn't change as a result of getting the qualification. But it was just good to have the qualification.
Was it a personal satisfaction? Yes, now I'm in qualified engineer now, or you didn't care much about it? Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, to be honest, there was an element of personal satisfaction. I think at that stage, maybe there was a little bit of there was maybe a little bit of what would you say, snobbery of engineers versus technicians. So I thought I may as well just get the official title, and given that I'm already doing the role anyway, so yeah, there was a personal satisfaction in getting that. So